All right, guys. You guys voted for this video from the Critical Drinker about modern movies and how the strong female character and some critiques on modern movies because of strong female characters, which I'm going to assume it's not because of strong female characters, because I've used to watch Critical Drinker a lot. I'm going to assume that it's going to talk about how back in the day, strong female characters were written well, and now strong female characters seem to not be written well. But I have like a little bit of a weird thought that I'm going to insert into this video at some point when I feel it's relevant that I think will blow your mind, bro. Let's go.
Connor, Clarice, Sarah Connor, Clarice Starling, Buffy Summers, Ellen Ripley, Marion Ravenwood, Princess Leia, Dana Scully, Samantha Carter, Eowyn, Vi, Aaron Sun, Nyota Uhura, Beth Harmon.
Yeah, that's the Arcane was pretty good, by the way.
Cara Thrace and Rita Vertasky.
Okay.
These are just a few examples of the many intelligent, complex, compassionate, brave, compelling, and well-written female characters that have emerged in the past 50 years of film and TV. Characters that have left their mark on whole generations of audiences to the point where they still resonate with people years or even decades after their creation. But then there's a different kind of character. A shallow, trite, cheaply made, gratingly unpleasant facsimile of these excellent ladies of the silver screen. A phenomenon known only as the strong female character.
Yeah.
Honestly, it seems like just about every character without a Y chromosome these days automatically has to be labelled as strong. It's one of the first words to come tumbling out of the mouths of the writers,
Yeah, it seems to be like a point where it was like almost unprovably strong. Like rather than the movie or show you that they are strong characters, it tells you that they're strong characters, right? And often some of the ways that they do that is like the male characters around them, like, wow, you're cool. Or they will kind of turn the male characters into shit just to platform the strong female characters. A lot of times they don't have to really go through any struggle and they're already the best.
Actors, directors, and marketing departments whenever they're asked about it, and it's been overused to the point where it's become completely and totally meaningless. Just another expected buzzword in the endless corporate-approved word salad that has to be sprinkled on every new project now.
True. And listen, I want to get my thought now. I feel like this is a good time to do it. Two things. One, I think that there's a level of laziness here. I think nowadays, just fundamentally when it comes to social justice topics, which I'm LGBTQ affirming. I'm a good guy. I'm a social justice warrior. But it seems like nowadays, all they do is say, look, this character is now not white. Look, this character is a woman. You should like them. And they don't write things well because of it. You know, it's like, we hit our diversity quota in the movie. Let's not write it well. And to me, that comes off as that's more bigoted. No, like what do you think? Like that's like if you think like listen, Star Wars was terrible. I think the episode 7 was okay. Wasn't like super resonating. Well, I didn't like the end that Rey somehow beat Kylo Ren in the end of episode 7. It made no sense, and it really, I think, diminished the movie for me because it infantilized the Kylo Ren character, which was supposed to be like our modern day Darth Vader, which was really good up until like the end. But either way, that one wasn't bad. But then it just spirals out of control in episode 8 and just total dog shit. And I feel like part of the reason is because like the writing was just felt like it could be lazy because it was a big movie with like a big franchise, and like they'll watch it regardless of how well we do. But I have another little bit of a theory as well. Yeah, I'm a 6'4" feminist. You know? But I have another theory as well as to why some of these strong female movies miss the mark, okay? This is going to be a little bit of a weird one, but I talked about this with my wife. It's very bizarre. But let's hear me out. From a historical perspective, what it means to be a man and what it means to be a woman, from a perspective of what their roles were pretty clear cut. A man, and you hear this in the manosphere, historically has just been somebody who is born valueless, that it cures their value through hard work. They go through something of a hero's journey to become the best version of themselves. And as they start out as like a nothing and they go through this hardship, they become these incredibly strong, powerful, masculine dominators. They get what they want because they earned it. They control everything. They get that money. They get the girls. I don't know what if I was a weird delay in my brain. They get everything. They're powerful. They're dominant. They're leaders. They're incredible. But historically, what it meant to be a woman was you get to be that guy's girlfriend. And I think that part of that has to do with, like, you know, some of the socially constructed gender roles, and maybe there's some biological factors there too. Of course, we'll never know fully, right? Because we can't just remove one of those from any society. It's a very complex situation. But women, on the other hand, were people who, rather than born valueless, they're born with their value. Again, you hear these things through the manosphere. They're born with their value, and that value goes away as time goes on. And so if you look at the movies that men tend to enjoy versus the movies women tend to enjoy, men tend to enjoy more action-oriented movies where the guy is a badass, and he, especially hero journeys movies like Luke Skywalker, he goes from a baby to a fucking baller. He gets to kiss his sister. I mean, like, what more could you ask for? But they focus on the guy in the movie who has to grow and go through like a character change and you know, do better, and then he gets whatever he wants. For women, though, it's like more romantic movies. It seems to be about a woman who their value exists, and they just need to find the right guy to see it. Right? Like romantic movies, comedy movies, or romantic whatever. It's like, oh, you know what? Like the movie's like, oh, I'm just a small time waitress, but I love art. I'm a good artist, but nobody sees my potential. And here comes the, you know, debonair, suave guy coming around, you know, Antonio Banderas or something, and he's like, "Oh my God, I'm an art guy myself. I make money doing art, facilitating the sale of art. Your art is incredible. Let me date you and marry you." And so it's like the perspective for men and women historically, like men focus more on going through like these evolutions, and women focus on people trying to see their value. Men focus on gaining value in movies that talk about that gaining of that value resonates with them, and women have value already, and they're focused on movies that show them like I am valuable enough. Watch me. And so I feel like nowadays there are some maybe writers, maybe those are woman writers, and they'll write a hero woman, and they don't write the hero fantasy because maybe from their perspective, if what they feel women it will resonate with women in a male dominated or a male not dominated industry, like an industry that men like to view more. I mean, men just like action more, right? They go, well, no, this woman is already amazing. We don't need to go through her hero's journey. In the same way that waitress in the diner that did good art was already valuable, and we just need to see that value. And so I wonder if it is that it's bad writing, because I don't enjoy it. It does not resonate with me. Not going through the hero's journey is boring to me. I think it's lazy personally. But I wonder if that's what resonates with women. But since women don't really watch action to the same degree, it just misses the mark with the male audience. And or a female audience that enjoys heroes' journeys, because, yeah. And so I've always thought about that. You know, and maybe I'm wrong, but I feel like that's something to think about. It's something it's a weird thought. And that's the biggest reason I wanted to watch this video. So.
In fact, Emily Blunt said it better than I ever could. It's the worst thing ever when you open a script and read the words "strong female leads." That makes me roll my eyes. I'm already out.
What a pick me girl. I'm just kidding.
I'm bored. Those roles are written as incredibly stoic. You spend the whole time acting tough and saying tough things. Oh, stop it, Emily. I can only like you so much.
That's interesting, that like strong female characters only say tough things and they don't really have emotions, apparently. That's the way that they describe it. I don't really watch movies with women. No, I'm just kidding. But if that is the case, that they are non-emotional and stoic, isn't that like against feminism? Feminism is supposed to be about being emotional and strong at the same time and finding your strength through expressing that emotion. And I agree and appreciate that perspective, that people should have a level of healthy emotional expression, and that makes them strong.
The thing is, though, she's absolutely right on this one. The strong female character cliche is as hollow, simplistic, and meaningless as all those soulless corporations that'll happily use social movements as an excuse to sell you more useless tat that was probably made in an Indian sweatshop.
Hey, listen, I like myself a good gay shirt. I don't know what to tell you, brother.
But why is this happening? What is it that makes a good female character different from a strong female character? Well, let's explore this together.
I think it's just bad writing, frankly. I think that's it. I think it focuses too much on like trying to appeal to what is considered to be strong rather than like developing its own different strength. Because you can look at like the Game of Thrones was a great example of this until like the last couple seasons, especially the last season. Every one of those women were strong female characters. like Caitlyn, the mom, that was her name, right? She was a very strong woman, but she was very strong through her role as a woman. And then same thing I would say with Sansa. She went through her hero's journey as well. But same thing as Arya, but she was more strong through like overcoming being a small girl, but still being like one of the most badass fighters. You know, you had Daenerys Targaryen. There's all different types of female or different types of strength that manifest themselves differently. Arya probably more of traditional. You know, you could have replaced Arya with like a guy, and it would have been like a hero's journey for like a man. You know, those did really well because they weren't trying to tell you that they were strong. They were just trying to show you that they were different types of strength. And it's not going to resonate with everybody. Not everybody's going to identify some of these very strong female characters as strong because they're not going to get it. But like, there was still an incredible strength in that. I mean, one of the strong things that Mommy Stark ever did was she didn't divorce her husband over him bringing back a bastard baby. You know, that is a very strong thing to do, you know. Though I will say I love Ned Stark, and my wife, though, says, like, why didn't he just tell just his wife? She seems like a down-ass bitch, and she would have understood. And I've never had an answer to that. I've always told her, I was like, no, you're wrong. Ned's the best character. She's like, why didn't she just tell his wife? They were in love. She wouldn't have said anything. And I was like, yeah, you're right. That the Jon Snow wasn't actually his bastard son; it was like his nephew or something, and there was a whole spoiler alert. You know, so that's a bit of a flaw. He should have told her. But Ned Stark was a good man, so you know I had to hit my wife for even questioning his character. I'm just kidding. She hits me. No, I'm just kidding. So,
shall we? The first problem is one of competency. See, one of the core elements of any character arc is presenting them with a challenge or difficulty that they have to overcome, whether it's an opponent to be defeated, a goal to be reached, or even a personal failing or weakness that has to be tackled. All of this stuff requires the character to grow or change in some way to become better than who they were before. They'll often be given some kind of mentor figure to guide them on their path.
I always loved the mentor figure. Those are like always my favorite figures. I love Obi-Wan Kenobi. Ned Stark is the mentor figure. I love those characters. Those are my favorite characters. Always resonate with me more than anything else.
And they're likely going to struggle and fail along the way.
Maybe it's because I didn't have a dad. Dad, please. Where are you?
It's all part of the learning process, and the more you see a character suffer setbacks and personal failures, the more you tend to empathize.
I mean, at this point, I'm at a point where like I wish my dad would come back with the cigarettes, you know, because I want to smoke them, but my wife won't let me. So it's like, hey, Dad, like, can I get a cigarette? You know, but I'm not allowed. They're not allowed to. But it would be nice if this would be the time to come back. This will be the time.
With them. It's basic human nature. Storytellers have known this for thousands of years, which is why most stories tend to follow the same basic structure, taking the audience on an emotional roller coaster and delivering a satisfying payoff by the end. But strong female characters don't work that way. A strong female character will almost always be supremely good at whatever she does, either succeeding right off the bat or teaching herself with minimal effort. They're generally not allowed to have older mentors.
I wonder if part of that too is because nowadays people are lazier. And like, mostly because we have the existence of technology, but younger people have a lot of like things that they're and like my generation's lazier than the previous generation, and the previ's generation lazier, and you get like so on and so forth because we have the technology. I think that's a pretty big part of it, but and a lot of food. So, you know, when you weigh as much as a boulder, it's hard to move. No, but all jokes aside, I wonder if that's part of it too, and that's part of the writing, and it becomes a little bit lazy, and for some reason, you know.
To teach them things.
Like I wonder because there is a certain threshold that you have to overcome to be considered somebody who's gone through like a very major character change, and I wonder if the bar for that is just kind of lowering because people have a different relationship with what they think hardship is nowadays, if that makes sense, you know.
Especially not male ones, because that would send out the message that women need men to help them succeed. The result is a character that doesn't really face any serious struggles or challenges, or suffer major setbacks that they have to bounce back from. They're almost never allowed to fail, because the writers incorrectly associate failure with weakness, rather than seeing it for what it actually is, a necessary part of personal growth.
True.
Failure itself doesn't define the character, it's how they react to it that matters. And if there's no failure, then there's no chance for growth and development. What strong female characters tend to focus on instead is self-actualization, the idea that she already has everything she needs to succeed, and all that's required is to let go of the limitations imposed on her by others.
Yeah, I mean, no, but that's what I'm saying. I think maybe that is something that just fundamentally or generally, Jesus, stuttering so much, that fundamentally resonates with women more. Maybe. And that when you apply that to a romantic comedy, it works really well because in like a more realistic sphere, that's what it's about. Like, oh, you're already enough. Someone just needs to realize that. Whereas in an action hero movie, it might not do super well. It might not be the best.
The message to the audience is simple. You're perfect the way you are, and it's the rest of the world that has to change. Nice one. Can't see that backfiring for people when they try to apply that to their real lives. Take Captain Marvel forcefully
I could change the world, don't worry.
removing the control chip that keeps her powers contained. It's a symbolic gesture of the strong, empowered woman throwing off the shackles imposed on her by society so that she can realize her true potential. It's a nice idea that probably had the writers patting themselves on the back, but the problem is that when you remove struggle, failure, weakness, and vulnerability, you don't leave the audience with a whole lot to empathize with. We don't need to feel invested in whether a strong female character is going to succeed because the writers give us no reason to question or doubt it. And what you end up with instead is an empty shell of a character with the superficial appearance of strength and empowerment, but nothing substantial or meaningful driving it. And it all just comes across as wish fulfillment, the desires and angst of the writers to see their character do the things they always wished they could do. And if you want an extreme example of this, just watch an episode of She-Hulk. Which brings me along to my next
I've never watched it. I saw the twerking wasn't bad. I watched an alternative version of that somebody had made on the internet. It was very educational. A lot more green in it, except for like a little. Almost like a star, and it was a different color.
point. Physical strength. One of the most tedious and embarrassing aspects of modern movies is watching a 100-pound actress ploughing through a series of extremely accommodating stuntmen twice her size because the writers mistakenly believe that the only way for a character to be strong is through feats of actual physical strength.
Yeah, I mean, I think that there can be female characters that are stronger than male characters if they're done well, right? That's it. Maybe they have like a fucking robotic enhancement, or they're a different race or something. Or the guy's a beta, Another thing I think that like the Game of Thrones did like well with like Arya Stark. She was a small little thing, and she was still able to kill a lot of like stronger guys, or some. She didn't kill a lot of people. Well, she did actually kill a lot of people. But anyway, you won't understand my point. She played to her strength, which wasn't physical strength, right? She understood her limitations and was able to do something about that.
Because after all, how can a woman possibly be equal to a man if she's not as physically capable as him? The problem is, you're always going to have a tough time selling a fight between a man and a woman on screen, for obvious reasons. Men are generally bigger, stronger and more robust, with denser and heavier bones, stronger muscles, broader shoulders, longer limbs and superior upper body strength. Add all of that stuff together and you've got a huge advantage when it comes to the application of physical violence. The problem is that this reality doesn't gel too well with the modern Hollywood ideology that men and women are exactly the same at everything. So how do they get around it, you might ask? Do they carefully structure and choreograph
Kill Bill did a good job with swords and stuff.
Male-female fight scenes to have the woman make clever use of her environment, the element of surprise, or improvised weapons to even the odds? Do they hire large, physically imposing actresses who actually look like they could take on a fully grown man? Yeah. Or do they say, fuck it, we'll just pretend that size and strength doesn't matter anymore? I think you know the answer already. Like in this scene from The Woman King, where a 57-year-old, 5'5" Viola Davis takes on a 29-year-old, 6-foot-tall man who's built like a heavyweight boxer. He's literally half her age and twice her size. A single one of these
Damn, him throwing her into those barrels would fucking knock the wind out of me.
haymaker punches would probably shatter.
It's fantasy. 007 couldn't kill all those guys either, let's be real. Yeah, I understand what you're saying. That there is always going to be like a level of non-reality in anything. I mean, if you watch like Taken, you probably aren't going to see a guy be able to plow through a bunch of people, and there is a level of fantasy that we're subscribing to when we watch anything. But I think that there's still some aspects of it that can maintain some level of realism. In the movie Taken, at the very least, you have like an old fucking badass. I forget exactly what he was, but he was like a military guy, and he was fighting just a bunch of like random drug cartel people that sex trafficked his daughter. And so like, yeah, would that happen in the real world? Probably not, but it's much more realistic based on the way that they present it. Whereas in this instance, it's like you're in our world and you have a girl who just happens to get thrown into barrels by a guy twice her size, and she's still like, let's go. There are some realistic, some areas where you can suspend disbelief, and some where maybe you can't as much. If that makes sense. Rambo, yeah, some of those things are a little unrealistic, right? But they're still within the specific realm of somewhat realism, right?
Most of the bones in her face, fracture her skull, and cause severe brain injuries. And yet,
like, yeah, she'd be fucking dead here.
There she is, tanking them like she's Rocky Balboa. Nobody is buying this because they know that an actual fight like this would be over in about 4 seconds. But if you want an
was that R. Kelly? What the fuck?
Nobody is buying this because they know that an actual
The braids threw me off. I'm sorry.
Fight like this would be over in about 4 seconds. But if you want an extremely rare example of how stuff like this would actually go down, check out this scene from Sicario where main character Kate punches a CIA officer full in the face as hard as she can, and it barely even phases him. Then he promptly knocks her on her arse in response.
Got him.
This is what actually tends to happen when you try to take down someone who's bigger and stronger and tougher than you. And the thing is, all of this stuff misses the point that actual physical strength isn't what makes a character strong. Someone who chooses to fight even if they're at a massive disadvantage is actually a lot braver and more compelling than some overpowered superhuman who dominates everything around them. Like in this scene from Lord of the Rings where Eowyn makes a stand against one of the most powerful and terrifying enemies in all of Middle-earth. You can see how frightened and tiny she is compared to him. She's basically a fly that he could easily swat away, and the fact that she doesn't just break and run speaks volumes about her strength of character, which is a lot more important than the strength of her muscles. The point I'm making here is that all of these attempts to push female characters as the physical equals of men comes across.
Steven Seagal was out of weight and lazy as fuck. Where were the videos of how ridiculous that was? Listen, I don't mean to upset you, but Steven Seagal is a fucking joke to like everybody. Everybody makes fun of Steven Seagal for being overweight and lazy as fuck. It's a meme, like all over the place. Steven Seagal movies aren't serious. Like they try to be, but everybody makes fun of Steven Seagal's movies. That's your example of like, no, they don't. Nobody criticizes. Yes, they do. Yes, they do. Yes, they do. Steven Seagal. Nobody takes Steven Seagal seriously.
Across more like envious wish fulfillment or spiteful revenge fantasies rather than believable character traits that fit naturally into a well-rounded story. More often than not, it's the writers pushing their own desires and personal ideology into the script rather than trying to tell a compelling story that resonates with audiences. Now, none of this is to say that it's impossible for a woman to beat a man in a fight. Of course it is. The differences between them aren't that huge, but it has to be carefully thought out and implemented to make it look believable on screen. Sarah Connor was an awesome kick-ass fighter in Terminator 2, but the film never tries to pretend that she's bigger or stronger than the men around her. Instead, she uses weapons, the environment, surprise ambushes, threats and hostage taking to even the odds. And it works. You believe that she could actually accomplish the things she does, and the natural result is that you buy into her character more.
Even if she may not be able to in the real world, but there's a reasonable level of like realism to it.
Another weird aspect of the strong female character is their general lack of human personality traits and redeeming qualities.
Well, that's just because women are soulless and don't matter. That's why I'm scared.
Instead of being altruistic, or compassionate, or protective, or vulnerable, or quirky, they're almost always written as stoic, emotionally closed off, blunt, dismissive, prickly, domineering, or aggressive.
Yeah, that's true. That's actually a good point. I never really thought about that. All these strong women are always just kind of like... They don't really have human levels of emotion. They're just like, I don't need nobody. Why? It's weird. It's a weakness. It's so interesting because, like, again, some feminist ideology will tell men that they need, I would say, to be a little more emotionally expressive and whatnot. And I agree with that. I think that men should express a healthy amount of emotion. And I think that there's an incredible strength in that. But then they'll make the female character have no expression of emotion. It's like, why is that strong? You know, I think it's a great thing for men to like take a breath and actually express themselves positively in an emotional capacity, in a way that makes them well regulated. And so do that with women as well. And there's something more threatening too about like a person, not even a man or a woman, a person who's really nice but is also a badass, right? The one who doesn't need to tell you that they're fucking baller. I'm fucking strong. I'm fucking like most people laugh at the person who tells you that they are a threat, right? Remember, even in Game of Thrones, I'm talking about that a lot. But like, the grandfather, I forget the name of it. I've watched so long. The dad, grandfather Lannister. Even when fucking the little asshole Joffrey was like, "I am the king," and the grandfather's like, "If you have to keep saying that, like, you're not really the king, bro." You know, it's like those. That's what it resonates with people. But the person that's like really kind to you and nice, but still has that strength in them, is like a scary character. You know, like Ben Kenobi, really nice guy, but then like fucking went toe to toe with Darth Vader, like a robot man. You know, he's mostly robot. You know, he didn't even age. Got a lot of that dog in him. And in the first movie, we saw him fight one time. Tywin, yeah. And we still think he's like a strong badass. You know, like back in the day, people were like, oh my god, he's such a badass. He's going toe to toe with Darth Vader. But like, we didn't see him fight ever again, but you still see that strength, even though he was a nice person, right?
Very same masculine traits that the writers seem to find so toxic and unacceptable in men. They very rarely have any kind of romantic interest in men, and are carefully written and dressed to avoid even the barest hint of sensuality or attractiveness. Either way,
yeah, which is lame in my opinion.
It all just smacks of overcompensation, a kind of knee-jerk reaction to all those overly emotional,
Batman is stoic. He still has strong dialogue, emotions, and great fight scenes. Yeah, for sure. And Batman also isn't like every other person, right? Like, so when the male superheroes are diverse, so Batman is more stoic and tends to be less expressive of his emotions. But he's also a diverse character. A lot of different superheroes will have different personalities, but this personality seems like all those strong women are just strong. Like for Wonder Woman, that idea of a strong woman makes sense. A strong, stoic woman that don't need no man. But that makes sense. And in some of the comic books, she does have like love too. But that makes sense because that's like a specific type of strength. You know, she's an Amazonian woman. That makes sense that she'd be stronger than men too. She's written really well. But it's almost like they go, let's see, we got to write a new female superhero. What should we do? Let's make another Wonder Woman. Call her Captain Marvel. You know, I know Captain Marvel's existed for quite some time. All right, they used to call Captain Marvel Shazam, but hey, not anymore. So
easily frightened damsels in distress.
It's not about that every female character needs to be sexual, I think, and it's not even about sex. There's nobody even brought up sex. It's about them being a normal person, some of them, and wanting to date a person, even a guy, right?
From previous generations of movies, a desire to break away from the tropes of women as caring, compassionate maternal characters or overly sexualized fantasy figures. Fair enough, there's absolutely nothing wrong with branching out and exploring different ideas. The problem is that if you take all those feminine elements away and replace them with nothing but the most stereotypical of male traits, then all you really end up with are women awkwardly pretending to be men. Like Galadriel from Rings of Power, always trying to talk tough, stamp down her authority, demanding respect and showing off. It doesn't ring true because it's not how women tend to act in the real world. Audiences know it, and if Emily Blunt's
I haven't watched this, but
comments are anything to go by, the actresses trying to play these roles know it too. Again, none of this is to say that you can't have assertive and authoritative female characters who speak their minds and fight their own corner, but you have to give them more than just the superficial facade of toughness. Just like how making them more physically powerful diminishes their bravery, and removing their challenges, weaknesses, and failures eats away at their relatability, so removing their emotional complexity and vulnerability makes them less likable. And the end result of all this is characters that are weirdly bland, sterile, sexless, emotionless, joyless, arrogant, condescending, and unappealing. People might not always be able to put into words what exactly is missing from them, but they know instinctively that what they're being shown just doesn't feel right, and it doesn't connect with them. And the more Hollywood tries to force these characters on us, the more people are rejecting them. It's kind of ironic when you think about it, that the strong female character should ultimately turn out to be their biggest weakness. Anyway, that's all I've got for today. Go away now.
okay, cool video. I liked it. That was fun.